Good evening and welcome to today's edition of Fact Sheet live on ETV, live on Nisim 95.9 and 100.1 in Bolgatanga and Tamale, respectively. It's also live on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Our handle is ETV Ghana, and you can follow us and share your thoughts, your views, and comments with us, even as we have a very important conversation which has to do with the food we consume. I know for most of the times when we sit here, it's purely hardcore politics, issues to do with economics, law, and co. But today it's become necessary for us to have a conversation about the food we eat and how we can ensure that we are eating proper food. Today is 7th of June, and it's a very special day because it's a day that's been assigned for food security, food safety, and we are going to talk about that. I just would like to share with you just a few statistics before we start the conversation with my panelists, very much versed in the area we are discussing tonight, and share some few details with you which you'd find on the United Nations website. Now, they state that an estimated 600 million causes of foodborne illnesses annually are almost always recorded. They also say that an estimated 420,000 people around the world die every year after eating contaminated food, and children under 5 years of age carry 40% of the foodborne diseases burden, with 125,000 deaths every year. Now, this is scary, very scary. As much as we are all concerned about the projections about food scarcity because of the Russian-Ukraine war, I think our concern has to be on the safety of even the food we have presently. How safe are they? That's our focus today as we talk about World Food Safety Day, 7th of June. My name is Samuel Shen, and I welcome you to the conversation. My panelists are ready, and we'll start the conversation after this short breather. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Fact Sheets live on ETV, live on Nisim 95.9 and 100.1, also live on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Our handle is ETV Ghana. I'd like to hear your thoughts as we talk about food safety today on the show. So the theme for our Food Safety Day is Safer Food, Better Health. But I'm going to start the conversation by introducing you to my guests. And today I'm joined by Madam Benedicta Kesua Ado, who is a dietitian and a researcher. Mr. Edward Kariwe is the General Secretary of Ghana Agricultural Workers Union. Madam Maria Abba Lovelace Johnson is Director of Directorate Food and Drugs Authority Ghana. And Mr. Daniel Basie Jr. is Eco Index Agro Solutions Limited Country Director. Gentlemen, ladies, you're welcome tonight.
Thank you.
All right, so let's start the conversation. And this is a general one. Any one of you can pick it up for us to set the tone for the conversation. I know we are talking about food safety. Two things come to mind, food and safety. But what do we consider as food for us to be concerned about its safety? Anyone can answer for me. What is food?
Since I'm the dietitian, I'll go with that.
That's fine.
All right. So when we say food, we're looking at anything that nourishes the body.
Okay.
Anything that's going to provide nutrients to the body. So we consume a lot of things, but sometimes some things are not considered as food because they don't play that role.
Interesting. So then, I'll come to you, Madam Lovelace Johnson, for us to establish what we mean when we say food safety. What is food safety?
Thank you very much. So food safety is the assurance that food, when eaten according to its intended purpose, will not cause harm to the consumer.
Okay. So in that respect, what factors would we be looking at when we talk about food safety? What factors?
Okay, so the things that do not render food safe are divided into three.
Okay.
They are put into three major compartments: microbiological, physical, and chemical.
Okay.
So when we talk about microbiological, we're talking about living things like the microorganisms, the fungi, the insects, and all of those. They are biological. So under biological comes microbiological, that's the microorganisms. Then we have the physical. The physical ones, maybe strand of hair in it, some stone in a burger, or stone in your rice, or gobe. with stones, all of that. And then we have the chemical. So chemical, we have the agro produce, for example, having pesticides going up and above the maximum residue limits. And so these three basic compartments or basic things will render food unsafe. So food safety is to ensure that the food will not have any of these hazards in them. So that's how we ensure that food is safe.
Now, you categorize them. You especially mentioned gobe.
Yes.
And we all have eaten beans before, where we eat beans and you see these little insects in them,
stones.
weevils, as we call them. Does it render the food unsafe?
Yes, to some extent. So, you know, I even talked about physical and or biological, physical, and chemical. Let me put it that way. The weevils have even two effects. One as a physical. You are seeing it in, you know, you are chewing beans, then you chew something and it's something crunchy that you didn't want. So that in itself is a physical hazard too. And then that is not the food that the person intended to buy. So when we get to the Public Health Act, that's the act that the Food and Drugs Authority acts with too. If you sell food or give food to somebody, food that does not go according to what the person is asking for. We know we have specifications for everything. So if you are doing gobe, it's beans and gari. The person never asked for beans, weevils, and gari. So that in itself too is even an offense. So coming back to your question on the weevils, that's physical. And it could be biological too, because it may have some toxins or something in that would render the food unsafe. It may have. I use the word advisedly, may. Because some people may say, oh, we've eaten it all along and nothing is happening. But nothing is happening. Is it cumulative? Is it at once? But so it may. And once that's not what you asked for, that's it. And others will say people even eat cockroaches, they fry and they eat. So all of those. But then that's not what you asked for. So that renders it unsafe in our context.
We will come back to that bit and focus attention on the rights and responsibilities of consumers if they are purchasing products on the market. But let me come to the agro bit and ask that if there are thresholds for the application of agrochemicals for foods that we consume, let's say the normal tomatoes on the market, the okra that we are buying on the market, any others, the yam, the cassava, now corn is in the system, we are buying it by the roadside and all. How do we ensure that our farmers, being, you know, the chief of the farmers or the agricultural workers union, how do we ensure that these limits, these thresholds are being met?
Well, thanks very much for
your mic.
Thanks very much for the opportunity and then for these questions. You know, for us, food safety begins with production. You know, and at the production level, a number of things happen. Application of fertilizer, application of weedicides and pesticides, and depending on the quantity and the concentration, and then that a farmer applies, that food could become problematic, having some safety concerns. The other thing has to do with what time space has been given after some of these pesticides are applied. If you apply pesticides or any other chemical, and then you do not allow time to pass by, and you immediately eat it, it could have an effect. But if probably it stays for 2 days, 3 days, you know, the chemical content could go out. So for us, everything begins with the production mode. So fertilizer, chemicals, and even handling. You know, and the point of safety would, as we are told by Madam, is that it would have physical and biological. But it's also a legal matter. You know, when there is a law or a legislation that prescribes a certain state of food as unhealthy, so must it be. Sometimes it may not necessarily be. And it's not also the case that when the law does not prescribe something to be unsafe, that thing is safe. So it's at the point of consumption that the full, you know, analysis or realization of safety arises. The food may be safe, but at the point of cooking, you may make it unsafe depending on how you cook it. So for us, it starts with production. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I know you talk about the agric extension officers being on the field and giving some education to farmers, you know, who are planting and all of that. But productivity is also at the back of the mind of the farmer, ensuring that the yields are increased at the end of the day to make more profits. I come back to the initial question I asked. Who supervises to ensure that the right amounts are being applied so as not to cause mutations in the production for yields to increase for the farmer, if he has a profit-making motive, for which definitely they would have?
Well, if you look at the institutions that are supposed to regulate that, even on the Ministry of Agriculture, you are looking at extension officers, and they must have knowledge about what constitutes safety or what level of chemical should be put in a given plot and so on. And then what follows next. You know, for instance, when you apply a certain chemical and then within a short time rains come around, they may even wash away the chemical and the potency of it will not be realized. But the serious risk is that because farming is done in the rural areas and because there are few extension officers all over, you know, it's very difficult to regulate the application of it on the farms. And the farmers themselves, you know, there are many chemicals that have not been approved. And yet they are within the system. DDT is still there, some very dangerous chemicals. There's now one which you call condemn. You know, you just spray it and the grass there will die. And it also has even effect on what? Other living organisms, you know, insects and so on. And as to what will happen to the crop there after that chemical has killed the other grasses, which you call the weeds, what is its effect on the crop that is standing? So that is the major problem that we have. And you know, farmers also get some chemical. For instance, if you look at tomato, when tomato becomes more red when it's getting too much ripe, and they may not wait for the time to come because they want to sell it to the market women. Then there are some chemicals when you spray, it ripes quickly. It makes it more red. But such tomatoes, when you break it, you see that the inside is green, and yet the back is red. It's red, and that goes with even fruits. You see, you buy sometimes pineapple. Part of it is rotten when the other part is not even ripe. All those things are effects of what? The chemicals. So it's really a dangerous thing. Come to vegetables. I mean, who supervises the level of chemicals that should be put on the vegetables? And certain perceptions are also there, you know, about the weevils. You know, when you eat beans and you see the weevils, the conception is that if it's no food, the weevils will not be there. And one of the things we also use at the local level to identify probably what is GMO and what is not GMO, we are told that, and I'm not speaking so categorically on scientific grounds, that the GMO produce, they are very clean, you know, very clean. You hardly find any insect there. Yeah. You know, and that, so when you see the weevils there, you know, it's also, there's a misconception that it's good food, that's why the insects are there.
Yeah, yeah.
There are some particular animals, when they die, not even a fly will go on them because it is poisonous.
Mm.
So anything that flies will not go on, it means that that thing is poisonous. These are all misconceptions, whether they are true or not, but they also help people to identify what is good and what is bad for consumption.
Interesting, revelations there. We will come to the products on the market that farmers have been using, because now, from what you said, there is a possibility of consuming unwholesome, how do you call them, produce on the market, which may look very fresh, but it's not good for the body because chemicals are being sprayed on them. Now, let me come to the diet bit as to what we consume, what we shouldn't consume, at what time we should consume, at what time we should not consume. Now, we are told that, when you're going to sleep, you don't eat heavy meals and that is not good for your health and all of that. Now, all these things are out there. We are told there's now something called keto, there's all of those things out there. But in terms of the safety of the individual and what he or she is consuming, would I be okay to say I've woken up in the morning and I want to eat heavy wache around 6 a.m.? That and the conversation we are having, how does it situate?
If you ask me, I'll say food safety still fits in a bit, but then what you're asking is also another topic altogether. And our perception of heavy and light is something we really have to correct, okay? So heavy is not really about the weight of the food, as opposed to, what we all know. So heavy has to do with the amount of calories, that's the energy we get from the food we are eating. So somebody can say, oh, okay, it's 9 p.m., so I'm not eating anything heavy, but opens a tin of milk, pours everything into a cup of tea, fries like 4 eggs, adds oil to the pan, fries the bread. Would you call that a light meal because it's like liquid, more liquid?
Oh, that's light.
You see, but then if we should, but if we
road.
should break down the calories in there, you'll be consuming more calories than someone who had probably a bowl of kinky or wachi. Okay, so this is something we really have to correct as a country. So the heavy, in quotes, has to do with the amount of calories you are giving the body, not necessarily the weight of the food. So you can eat kinky for breakfast. You can eat your wachi. You can even eat fufu if you can tolerate it as a person. But then what is the portion? And then what are you adding to the meal?
All right. But from the point of view of a dietitian, what constitutes food safety? Okay,
great. So from the definition that has been given so far, we are looking at anything that is not causing harm to the body. And one of the things that we struggle with as people is the ability to tell whether something is gone bad or is safe. Most of the time we just look at the food and be like, oh, it's not spoiled. Sometimes you can actually see the mold on it. You're like, well, let me just cut that part off and then eat the remaining. This is one of the things we really struggle with as dietitians, communicating that once you see probably the mold or slime on your food, then it's not safe for consumption.
All right, so the conversation, it's for purposes of education and information as well. So I was brought up in a home where if we woke up maybe the day before we had done, let's say, katenkwine, and then the next morning there's some small change in there. Mommy says, Kwame, fabidia tumna, young woman and all of that sliminess and everything vanishes. And we are told charcoal has that potency of removing, poison and all of that. Is that a bad thing?
So great about that. When you're looking at food, there are so many things that come to play. The time of exposure, the temperature you kept the food under. So let's say this in Katenkwai. I know some people keep it in a bowl of cold water to regulate the temperature in a way, but mostly cooked food that has been outside for more than 2 hours, spoilage would have set in. So sometimes you wouldn't see with your eye, you wouldn't even taste the change, but there are a few things that can tell.
No, take that again. You said that food which has been cooked and
food
which has been left outside for 2 hours.
Over 2 hours spoilage can start.
Wow.
Yes. So mostly after you cook your meal, if you're not going to eat it like in about 2 hours, the best thing is to keep it in shallow pans and then refrigerate as soon as possible.
Okay. All right. So now let me come to you, Mr. Bassey. Food safety also from your point of view, what constitutes food safety?
Well, thank you very much. With me, taking into consideration my real profession as an organic agronomist, food safety starts from the farm or the field where you're producing your food. In organics, we have 4 protocols that we need to observe in producing food. And the 4 protocols are health,
Okay.
ecology, care, and fairness. You know, when we take these 4 protocols into consideration, it goes a long way because we are very, very, very mindful about the environment also. When we're talking about food safety, we don't need to only look at what goes into our system in the form of food, what goes into our tummy. What is around us in the form of an environment, what makes us live as human beings. All these things count because it boils down to our health and well-being. So with organics, when we observe these 4 protocols, then whatever food is produced, I will look at it from fresh foods, like vegetables and fruits. Well, some grains, legumes, and cereals, some of them could be consumed raw, or some of them could be best used when it's fresh. When it's produced from these 4 protocols, then we can as well conclude as these foods are organic. Therefore, it is safe to consume, especially consumed raw, just like vegetables. So from my point of view, as a professional organic agronomist, I'll look at it from the organic perspective of consuming food. It has to go through this process. Apart from that, it goes on and on. Now, we are also looking at the environment. Whatever food that I'm producing, I'm growing on the field, I don't need to disturb and distract fauna and flora. They are in place. Apart from them, or if they are not existing, the food that I'm producing cannot even function properly because there are so many things that goes on when me being the farmer, if I'm not on the field, it goes on sometimes so early in the morning, late at night when I'm asleep, and so on and so. You know, plant life, it's quite different and it varies according to a particular time of the day. For instance, we're looking at insects. When we are not using synthetic materials or chemical materials, chemical input or synthetic inputs in controlling insects, in organics we have a way of controlling insects, although we have our own biological system of controlling insects. We have our own certified, insecticides or certified pesticide made from neem oil. We use all these things to control insects. But when we use them to control insects, we are not killing them. We don't kill. We tend to do what will distract them from destroying the crops that we are growing so that they don't kind of reduce the economic value that we are looking for as a farmer. So what happens is that some of these insects are pollinators. They need to pollinate, especially the fruit crops that we're growing. The tomato, the chili peppers, and what have you. It has to go through pollination. So some of the pollination is like that. It cannot be done in the morning, in the afternoon. It will be done late at night when I'm asleep. So you don't need to really observe and see what is going on. So you need to give the prevailing environment for these insects to function properly, for them to operate and do what they need to do. Some of these insects are nocturnal, therefore they operate late at night. You don't see them around in the morning or in the afternoon or whatever you. So that's what happens. So we observe all these things. We take all this into consideration so that we make sure that the environment is safe for our crops to grow and grow well. So that when we harvest these crops and consume, we are sure of consuming healthy and safe food.
Well, let me come to the bit about the chemicals we use at the farm and what FDA does to ensure these chemicals meet standards. these chemicals are not hazardous for human consumption. How do we check all these things?
Okay, so before you come to that, when you were asking a question about your grandmother's soup or something
Yes.
like that, really, spoilage microorganisms are not pathogenic.
Okay.
They do not cause harm, more often than not, 90% of the time. For microorganisms, we have the good ones that are like the ones we put in our condo,
Okay.
so that they ferment, so we can get our cocoa with a biting taste, we can
Yeah.
get our banku and co with a biting taste. Then the second group is the spoilage microorganisms. They are those that will let your soup go sour in the morning, your stew go with the off smell and all of that, that you can use the activated charcoal to correct.
Okay.
And then we have the pathogenic microorganisms.
Okay.
They are the dangerous ones.
Okay.
If we are talking food safety, our focus is on the elimination of pathogenic microorganisms.
Break it
because
down
we
for
do
us.
not. Yes, so as I said, the good ones, we have the good, the spoilage, then the pathogenic. Pathogenic is harmful, as in they cause illness. They cause illness, foodborne illnesses. So if you hear food poison, foodborne illnesses, is all about pathogenic microorganisms.
So how do I know that this change
That
in
is
the
where
food,
the danger is.
How do I know that this one is a pathogen that is causing this?
That is where the danger is, and that is why we have to take food safety so seriously. The pathogenic, you can get a hint with the smell.
Okay.
Good. The good is good, so we don't have a problem. We use it to do the breweries, in beer, pito, and all of that.
Yeah.
But the pathogenic ones, you can get your banku and your fish looking very nice, more appealing than even the very safe ones. Yet, there is a problem. So the question is, how do you see? You will not see, but you can take steps that will ensure that that will not happen. And these steps, the WHO has them in 5. So it's a 5 keys to food safety or to safer food. 1, you keep clean. And keeping clean means making your place very clean. You thoroughly clean your worktops. You don't leave your food overnight for cockroaches. Cockroaches and mice are all nocturnal. If you leave it there, your place becomes good for them. It's an enabling environment for them. So they will come, they will thrive there, they will survive, they will grow, they will multiply, and even start producing toxins in your food, which will get you sick. Then the second one is separating raw from cooked.
Okay.
So we separate raw food from cooked food as if it has to be mandatory, actually.
Okay.
Because you see, the raw food like meat, as we're talking about, meat, I always say that meat is from dead animal. It's a dead animal, which is close to a corpse.
Okay.
When you find a corpse, you won't go close to it because you're thinking of the germs that will be there. It's the same with meat. Meat has all the germs loaded in there. So the cooking or the heat processing, that is whether you are grilling, you are cooking, you are boiling, whatever you're doing to it, it's the heat treatment ensures that these microorganisms are eliminated, or if they can't be totally eliminated, they are reduced to the barest minimum to render the food safe for consumption. So having done that, it is so bad if after having killed all the microorganisms, then you put it next to the raw one, or the knife you will use in cutting let's say you get a grilled chicken, and you need to cut them up. Then the next thing you do is you use the same one that you use for the raw. Instead of washing with soap and under running water, you just do, let me just rinse it and use it. You are cross-contaminating.
Okay.
So you bring it in there. You put things in the fridge, and then your meat is somewhere in the middle. In thawing, you take it from the freezer and you need to put it in the fridge. We'll talk about thawing too later. So you do somewhere up there, your bread is somewhere down, your stew or something you're just going to eat, or your salad, then it drips, it gets in there. Do the separation properly, proper separation, so that if you put the cooked ones or the heat processed ones up there. Then you put the raw ones down. Worst case scenario, if there is a dripping, is from that angle, from the clean to the less clean, not the other way around. Packing them in the freezer and all of that, you have to separate raw from cooked. Then we get to the third one, which is cooking thoroughly. As for cooking thoroughly, we do so well, so I do not belabor the point all the time, because we cook to the extent that the nutritionists will even tell you that all the nutrients in contumely and all of that have gone away. We cook so well, the meat and all of that, we do it very well. Maybe it's just sometimes the food service establishments, when they are under pressure, that they may do that, but really, generally we do well. What we don't do well is reheating. When you have kept the food in the fridge and it has to be reheated, you put it in the microwave 1 minute, then you take it away. It has to be piping hot. So it has to be reheated properly, because the microorganisms we are talking about that will die when it's around 100 degrees Celsius. We do not want any warm, just the normal ambient temperature for them. So they have to, we are killing them. So you need to act properly. Otherwise, if you just do it halfway, then you're rather reviving them from the fridge where they were inactivated. So that's the reheating. Then storage, that's where we have our problem. That is where we have all our problems. Storage. Food must not be kept at ambient temperature for more than 2 hours. So you cook the food, you put it down, 2 hours is at ambient temperature. These microorganisms just have the platform for growth and reproduction. And their reproduction is so interesting. They do not need a man and a woman to come together before the gestation period of 9 months. No. All they do is after a few hours, binary fission. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4. They just go like that. In about 6 hours, there will be 1 microorganism can get offsprings like the population of the world. Over 6 billion. 6 billion.
Interesting.
Over just in 6 hours.
Interesting.
Yes. So these are the things we are dealing with, the microorganisms we are talking about. So as soon as you have your food cooked, you take it to the fridge or freezer.
When
you
it's
refrigerate
warm?
when it's warm. Yes. I know that our parents have told us, our mothers, grandmothers have told us that you don't do that. They say when you do that, you'll spoil the fridge. Yes, I wouldn't say they were lying. What they said had some substance in it, because when you take that very hot food into the fridge, you will need to attain equilibrium. Into the very cold fridge. Fridge has a temperature of, let's say, 5 degrees, all of that, or maybe even the freezer -5 and that, and then you take some 100 degrees Celsius in, or 60, 70 in. Equilibrium has to be attained.
Yeah.
So the coldness will take some of the heat will take, and for a brief period, you will feel your fridge warm, as if it's not working. So as they say that it will spoil the fridge, to some extent, that's where they were coming from. So for us not to even get the fridge having that challenge of that short period of the attainment of equilibrium, that period we need to get the things to get cold, you pack them in small bowls, small bowls, so that you can get rapid chilling for them. You rapidly chill, because then they're in small bowls. So in a house of, let's say, a family of 5, 6, 7, you get a bowl, you've done a big pot of soup. 7 people will take at once, or maybe sometimes you do an 8th just in case you get a visitor coming in. If you don't get, you eat your own thing. So you just do about 8 or so, pack it small, put it in, pack it small, put it in. And that also helps you not to get the thing heated, reheated, going back into the fridge, back and forth. No. So you just have it and you get it.
Now,
and then the last, so this is the 4th one.
Okay.
The storage. The last is the use of raw materials or ingredients that are safe.
Okay.
So we come to your chemicals and the agro products and for the manufacturer or for, let's say, even for the home, how do you know that that is safe? And that's where you're thinking, how does FDA come in with the hazardous chemicals is an EPA issue.
Matter. Okay.
Environmental Protection Agency. It is their issue. They have even committees for hazardous chemicals. They ensure that they are not in town. That is not FDA. FDA has the mandate of ensuring that the food is safe, efficacious, and of good quality. And we do household chemical substances. So the mosquito coil, the sprays, the floor cleaners, and all of that. But once they are those chemicals, it's an EPA thing. We do not control. But then we also, the product itself we do. We check what's the maximum residue limit, has it gone above it, what is happening, how is the agric extension officers advising these people when they are doing it, when is it harvested and all of that. It's a Ministry of Food and Agriculture thing. So you see, it's food safety from farm to fork. Everybody or every institution has a part to play. Ministry of Agriculture will see to it that it is sprayed properly on. They do the right thing. They harvest. They wait. You don't just put it on the market right as a harvesting. You do it, take it, let the chemicals wear off, and put it there. And so this is how. So for the safe ingredients for the consumer, what you have to do is when you go and there is a rotten tomatoes, you just don't buy. When we get to the markets and we're asking them, why do you have, they'll tell us, watch it, but why should it be so? So you don't use the maggot-infested tomatoes and pepper and taking it to, and that is also, that's one thing that shouldn't happen. Millers should not even take that and mill it, because you do not know where you will be eaten from. Whether it's a maggot-infested one that you did yourself, that has ended up as a very sumptuous meal for you, and you will be tempted to eat it. So
now, the bit about storage. Now, we have read articles online to the effect that we should not store food in rubber. You go and buy cocoa, it's in rubber. You're storing your food in the house, it's in a rubber pack. You're putting it there. You go and buy your rice, it's also in a rubber pack. It's also there. Can you explain to us why we read lots and lots of stuff about why it's not good to use rubber products for the storage or even for consumption?
Yes, so rubbers or plastics have plasticizers. They end up emitting certain things into the product and all of that. But then we're still doing some more research because there's something called risk analysis. In the risk analysis, we do some assessment of the risk it will pose to the person. What is the chemical we are talking about? How often is someone exposed to it? How much of it is getting into the person? And what is the average weight of the people that the things will be getting into? We do a lot of that before you come up and say, look, we are not allowing this to be done. And you know, regulation is not done in isolation. You take into consideration the socio-economical factors as well. So you weigh the two before you come up with maybe a regulation or a policy that for this reason we're taking all of these off. So research is ongoing, and then we will come up with something if it is that's a policy to that effect.
I know my other panelists, I'm focusing a lot more time with her, but just to find out before I come to you, because you mentioned genetically modified foods. I would want a bit of clarity on that. But I want to understand how the FDA works in the markets, because you spoke about meats and you said virtually it's a dead animal. And so it's the corpse of an animal we are talking about. If we went into, let's say, 3 or 4 markets in Accra, I go to the Malam market, there's a Kaneshie market, there are several others. There would be no meat joint that you'd go to buy meat, that you won't find lots and lots of houseflies. All over the place, and they have to do like shum, shum, shum before they will cut your piece for you. Now, obviously, this is the danger for anybody who is going to buy food, but that's where we buy our meat from. How does the FDA ensure that this does not go on?
Well, the meat issue has been quite challenging, and God willing, on the 16th of June, we are launching the food safety policy.
Okay.
It's been challenging because it's not just the Food and Drugs Authority that is in charge of it. We have the Veterinary Services Department or Directorate of the Ministry of Agriculture involved as well. We have the local government, Ministry of Local Government involved as well. So when you even go and see a slaughterhouse that is bad, it's not just the Public Health Act 851 does not mandate the FDA to close it down. It is in collaboration with the local assemblies and the veterinary services till they come in. So it's not a one-man thing. It's a collaboration. And when it's always a collaboration, you will agree with me that sometimes there are a bit of challenges here. This is this one's job, but maybe it's not being done in a certain way. This one thinks it has to be a certain way. But then when the food safety policy is launched on 16th June, God willing, then we know we are working with a policy that says that we are working together. So we see, let's move together. In the meantime, even though the policy has not been launched, because we got together to do it since 2009 and all that, we've been working together closely. But as you know, if it is just you, I mean, really, if the house and all of that, when you know that it's just you, you may move. Like if it's you and someone, you need the consent of another. And so it's not just FDA. So we cannot just, but we are working closely. And of course, if there is any problem with any food in Ghana, it is FDA. So we know that ultimately it comes to us. And so we are working. We have taken steps to get the slaughterhouses, the slab, and the slabs licensed. Some of them licensed, some of them are in the process. We do a lot of public education for them. And sometimes you see the infrastructure, talking about the flies and the meat. I earlier indicated that food safety or regulation is not done in isolation. You take the socio-economic factors into consideration. Are there refrigerators even provided for them? Are these people, you and I know that these butchers who are selling, can they afford the freezers, each one of them? Should that be a requirement that before you are into selling this, everybody must have a deep freezer? Should that be a requirement? Where have we got into? You know, you need to talk to them. You need to engage. And we've been engaging for long. But then, how much is a deep freezer? Do you want to put that person out of business? The social, the economic impacts. There's a lot to be done.
I'll come to the agro aspects. The question about genetically modified foods. Does it in any way pose a danger when we are having a discussion about food safety? GMOs, Mr. Kare.
Well, that's a very difficult question. First, we have to look at why GMO. You know, some of the reasons are that when the GMO foodstuffs could take a longer time to get rotten. For instance, if you talk about tomato, and then the tomato is a GMO, it doesn't get easily rotten like the ordinary ones. So it cures some challenge. Another one has to also do with dealing with pesticides. You know, pests.
Pests.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, so that the crop can withstand the invasion of pests and they live longer.
Mm.
And post-harvest losses, you know, how often it gets rotten and so on. But one, we are so much against it because it's not to be against GMO in totality.
Mm.
There are some aspects of GMO that is good. I learned when it comes to insulin and the rest, those things are GMO-based, you know, products.
Mm.
But when it comes to food, why do you introduce GMO when the full impact of GMO is not known medically?
Mm.
The effect of it on man. We are talking about food safety, whether or not it is immediate or long term. The cumulative effect of eating a particular unsafe food is one challenge.
Mm.
Some come with immediate effects and then you can easily run away from it. Others do not do that.
Mm.
So when you look at the GMO products, yes, they claim some areas they eat it and sometimes, but we are looking at whether or not what is the long-term effect of it.
Mm.
The scientists themselves are not unanimous on the full impact of it. For instance, if you take beer, you know, we know that beer has got 5% alcohol. It is this. If you take more, you get booze. You do this. Can we say same with GMO? Say rice.
Mm.
That if you take 3 cups of it, or this quantity of it, this is the effect you have.
Mm.
And if you take less, this is the effect you have.
Mm.
Those things are not well known. Meanwhile, we have an agricultural system bedeviled with challenges that the GMO is not, it will not be able to resolve.
But you have hybrid seeds
Yes.
that you plant, and these are sometimes especially done at the laboratory to ensure that, let's say, the process of germination it's shorter. I mean, in my house I have guava that takes a shorter time to grow. I have coconut, takes shorter and it's not long, it's very short. There are mangoes that are also extremely short. What's the difference between these hybrid seedlings and genetically modified foods? What's the difference? Because you use the words interchangeably. One time you are saying they are hybrid seedlings, and another time you say GMO. What's the difference? I don't know, Mr. Basie.
Thank you very much. You know, with GMO issues, before I start, I'm wondering whether we have enough time for us to discuss about it before, because when I step into this, it's going to take us so many hours.
Let's try and summarize within some 5 minutes.
Well, 5 minutes might not be enough, but let me try to tell you this. You know, genetically modified foods, it is a no-no. As an organic agronomist, we don't even want to hear the word genetically modified foods. The complications it has on human health, on the environment also, and so many other things. You know, it is a system, or it's a strategic way of making business. It is for the business people. It is indirectly also like a biological weapon, because when you continuously consume genetically modified food, you know, it affects your system. I mean, it affects your reproductive system. It gives you some kind of wide range of strange illness with the cancer and so on and so forth. I can give all the scientific proof. That's what I'm saying, that time might not permit us, but let me just highlight some of these things. So it is not, when they keep talking about food safety, when they keep talking about food security, for instance, people still give the reasons why we need to step into GMO, or because our population is increasing, we need to feed more people, and with what we are doing before, it cannot really feed the population, and so on and so forth. All these things are very, 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 I mean, it's not true. They are myths. It is never true. I keep saying that when we are talking about population increase, I keep asking myself, how many homes of today are having more than 5 kids? How many men of today are marrying 2, 3, 4, and 5? So where's the population increasing? Back in the days, our grandparents and so on and so forth, they were marrying more women, and they might have 5 children with a woman. So if I marry 5 women and have 5 children with each, you can imagine the kids. We are growing. But in this day and age, those things are no more. People are having fertility issues. People are having issues that have to do with, some other health challenges in relation with childbirth. How many women are really being able to go through proper laboring without going through the CS, so on and so forth. Most women now, they are saying that when they go for the first and the second, they don't want to go for the third one because they've done 2 CS. They want to do the third one. So where's the population increasing? So why are we sitting down for us to be lied to, saying that population is increasing, therefore we need to introduce genetically modified food to feed the population? It is never true. Now, with the hybrid seeds and the genetically modified seeds, let me quickly say this. When it comes in terms of crops and food, the economic value that we are looking out for as business people in the agriculture sector, we tend to improve certain traits of the crop, of the seed, so that it will give us the exact economic value that we are looking out for. There's a way to improve upon it. For instance, if I want to develop a seed, there's a way to produce seeds, open pollinated seeds. There's a way I need to bring up that seed. There's a kind of nutrients which I need to supply, I need to feed with the plants through the soil that will give me quality and healthy seeds. And when I sow those seeds later, it grows so well that will look like a variety that is of a hybrid, because I'm able to really grow the seed properly. For instance, in animals, when we tend to improve upon a certain breed of an animal, we bring in a male that look stronger, that look healthy, to cross a female, for us to get an offspring of that male animal, which also look like the male, or that look like let me use pigs, like a boa. Okay, any farmer who is doing livestock will not go for a weak boa to cross a sow. No way. They have a way of doing that. They do their own selection. I want this male, I want that male to cross my female, so that I can come up with very, very good breeds. It is not genetically modified. I'm trying to improve upon a breed.
Just hold on a second for me. We'll go for a breather. When we come back, I would ask about food poisoning. From your point of view, Kesewa, what constitutes food poisoning? There's been the recent case of food poisoning. What causes it? If you have a food poisoning incident, what rights, what responsibilities do you have if we are talking about food safety? But I'm on the website of the World Health Organization, and they try to talk about GM foods. And they ask the question on their website. They say, are GM foods safe? Now,
It is not safe.
This is what they say.
Yeah.
Different GM organizations include different genes inserted in different ways. This means that individual GM foods and their safety should be assessed on a case-by-case basis, and that is not possible to make general statements on the safety of all GM foods. Now, this is the interesting part. That's with respect to your position on GM foods. This says,
go ahead.
GM foods currently available on the international market have passed safety assessments and are not likely to present risks for human health.
It is never true. Let me explain this, okay?
It goes on. 1 second. It says, in addition, no effects on human health have been shown as a result of the consumption of such foods by the general population in the countries where they have been approved. Continuous application of safety assessments based on the Codex Alimentarius principles and, where appropriate, adequate post-market monitoring should form the basis for ensuring safety of GM foods. So they say, the World Health Organization says, your position is incorrect.
It's funny. Look, I tell you this. It's Monsanto who brought about genetically modified foods. Monsanto has sold his shares and other companies has bought his shares. And it has replicated. Syngenta and so on and so forth. They are all genetically modified food, or Monsanto's kind of working with them indirectly. I don't want to mention other companies or other organizations.
So you think that the World Health Organization would...
Forget about WHO. Listen, even the COVID, I'm telling you this, and take it from me. Even with the COVID, come on, World Organization, they messed up so much. They misguided us in so many ways, looking at the public protocols and so on and so forth. I don't want to go there, but let me tell you this. Whoever is funding a research, ask yourself, who is behind a research. The one who funds you will tell you what you need to do to come up with what our findings. Monsanto is a very rich person. The genetically modified environment, the GMO world, they are filthy rich. They fund so many research. So when they found you as a researcher, what do you think? Will you say anything against what they do? You will never. They will do all that they could for you to come up with a proof. Because even right here in Ghana, when the cowpea variety that came, what is genetically modified, it is in the system now. Scientists right here in Ghana I keep saying, and they are proving that it is safe for consumption, so on and so forth. They are talking about, our cowpea is having a lot of insect infestation. Therefore, with a genetically modified variety, there wouldn't be insect infestation, and it goes on and on. As what Madam said, and as my colleague also said, it is an indication when you have an insect that has eaten a little bit of your food, that the food is healthy. What does food that look like that got to do with a blind person? People are born blind. When the blind person is eating cowpea stew or cowpea with whatsoever, and there are insects in there, and he's eating, he don't see them, he's just eating. Okay, all these things come into play. So when Monsanto and his people, his accomplices, they are funding you in a research, they will make sure you come up with proof to indicate that what they are doing is right, but it is not right. Look,
well, I hold a contrary view to your position about sponsorship of a research and the outcome of that research.
I can give you so many examples.
I also have several examples I can give you about researches which have been done, sponsored by certain institutions. In the end, the results did not necessarily favor these institutions that sponsored that research. But here we are. But that's by the way. We'll go for a short break. When we come back, Kesiba, you help us with what food poisoning is. It's been a matter of talk when we are talking about food safety, what we should look out for when we are buying food, and if indeed we have food poisoning, what do we do? Then the regulators will tell us our rights and our responsibilities when it comes to consumption of food, which in the long run may turn out to have been a matter of food poisoning. We will be right back. To stay with us. And we're back on, and there's a suit waiting for me by the time I'm done with the show. That's on the lighter note. But Keswa, I was asking about what's food poisoning. Yeah, what is it?
So food poisoning basically refers to someone getting ill as a result of eating food that is contaminated with toxins. Dr. Lovely mentioned earlier that some of these contaminants that could be chemical, biological grades. So some of these microbes or microorganisms produce some toxic substances and it can cause diseases. So those diseases are termed food poisoning.
But how does it manifest? How do I know that I've gotten poisoned by eating some meal? And how do I know it's even coming from that meal in the first place?
Well, so some of the common symptoms, you could vomit, could have diarrhea, stomach ache, but that's not enough to diagnose yourself. So mostly you'll be diagnosed in a hospital by a certified practitioner, maybe a doctor, PA.
So I go to a restaurant, I eat some nice meal, and then I'm on my way going, I pass by some supermarket, I buy a bottle of water, I take it in and I'm going. By the time I get home, if I'm experiencing some stomach aches, how do I trace where this, thing could happen, where it's coming from?
Well, so that would be a bit difficult. The tracing would be difficult, but then based on the signs and symptoms you're having, when you go to the hospital, sometimes they take, I don't know if you've ever had food poisoning, they will take some fecal matter, and then they will do a test to tell what particular microbe is causing, yes.
So if I,
okay, just to add on, so the FDA since 2014, 2013, 2014, started a foodborne disease surveillance program. So if you have a problem and you take it to the hospital, we normally have the hospitals even linking us. And then also we've told everybody, if you have a problem, just tell us. We have a form that you can complete. And it tells what you ate in 72 hours, what you ate in 48, what you ate in 24 hours, and so on. So if we get person A giving us something they ate, person B giving us person C giving us, we get 2, 3, 4 people in the last 72 hours, 48, 24 hours, they all point to one particular joint they ate from, then we even get to know that there is a problem.
Okay.
So that helps us even trace, and then we get to the joint and we do our inspection, and then more often than not, we realize where the problems are coming from.
Okay.
So the reporting is so important, even to the Food and Drugs Authority. To the doctor, yes, you have symptoms of all that she described. We call them gastroenteritis. So the symptoms of all of that, you get them, and then you report to the hospital just so that you get it cured.
All right. So I eat at Mr. Base's restaurant. I have complications. We've traced it to Mr. Base's restaurant. What are my rights?
Your rights as a consumer, yes, you have reported to him. He has to deal with the problem. As far as you, the consumer, you are concerned.
Okay.
With the FDA, your rights to us as a is for us, our responsibility is to protect you and protect everybody. So once that has happened, we will make sure that we prevent recurrence of the problem. So we quickly get to the place, see what were the things that went wrong, put corrective actions in place, and go ahead to put preventive actions in place. As I earlier indicated, we ensure that we prevent recurrence. So all the steps that have to be taken, we do that. So for us, as far as your rights is concerned, you pay me to ensure that your food is safe, to ensure that your drug is safe, your cosmetic is safe, all of those things are safe. So we'll make sure that you get it. But then, companies have their own consumer complaints policies.
Okay.
So they will say, they have done this to you, they can't compensate you. That is normally between the company and the individual. And then when we go for inspections at such places, we even look at their consumer complaint policies, and they always have a form of a compensation for individuals.
But how frequent are these, you know, what do you call it, inspections you do, the FDA? How frequent
At
are
least annually. At least annually.
At least annually.
At least.
So
And depend, we do race-based inspections. That's why I said at least annually. There are some facilities that you don't need to be there all the time.
okay.
Maybe once a year. Sometimes there are some that could even be taken twice a year. First one, maybe physical. The next year, we look at it virtually or do desk audits. Then the next year, so some do it alternately. There are some that we have to be there annually. There are some that we have to be there twice in a year. There are some that we may have to be there even every quarter.
So we have risk profiles of
Yes,
things we eat.
absolutely.
Shouldn't the consumers know about the risk profiles of these entities?
Really, the places you eat from, we give them food hygiene permits. So as a consumer, if you go there, ask for their food hygiene permits. If you see their food hygiene permits, then FDA is telling you that it can, to a large extent, vouch for the safety of the food coming out of the place. If you don't see a food hygiene permit, then you eat there at your own peril. So,
Our time is fast spent, but I'll give each of us a minute or two. Mine, I would ask Mr. Carrera about fruits on the market. We are told that we should eat fruit. The dietitian is here. They'll tell us that we should eat fruit. Mangoes are there. Now there are watermelons in the system. Pear is also in the system. Now, in consuming these raw foods, how do we ensure we are not eating something that is going to bring us diseases and sicknesses? How do we ensure? The banana I eat all the time. When I was growing up, when you buy a banana and there's some soft spot, and then I'm trying to pick them, my mother says, "Hey, my friend, the idea and the uncle," and then back, you eat all. So, how do we ensure we are eating the right foods?
Well, again, I think this is a very difficult question in the sense that if you look at the spectrum of the population, a certain section of the population may see food not to be seafood to be healthy, another one will see it as not healthy. You know, it also, so as the population, those who are at the middle and higher level of income, you know, they try to even throw away certain type of foods and the rest, and that they are not healthy. But you see, the baseline is that it has to also do with your ability to feed yourself. In fact, people sometimes know this, but you see, if you don't eat one particular type of food, and her case, like nutrition, you know that it's not balanced food, but the person cannot afford to do all that. That's also one thing. But if it comes to fruits and those things, what you need to do is to wash them well. You know, because
So if we are talking food safety, it's interesting this is coming up at the tail end of the conversation.
Yes.
We can't talk about food safety without talking about purchasing power.
yeah,
Interesting.
purchasing power is very, very important when it comes to food safety. It is not just that people go and see the food lying on the ground like this, and yet they buy. You know, it's also because they cannot buy from probably the malls and so on. You know, the price there is very expensive. You know, you get to the environment, you yourself know that this is a clean environment. It gives you a certain sense of safety. You get me? Not necessarily that it is safe, but it gives you a certain sense of safety. But you see the thing poured around, flies are all over it, and then you are still picking it. You see that part of it is rotting. There's sun also in it. You don't know how that sun is, whether is contaminated with other things or not. But you know that is contaminated, but your ability. So, but generally speaking, the way we handle our food in the market, look, I don't know who is responsible to regulate this, but I think that it is just very, very, very bad. And it affects the poor most, who, when they get illness, they can't go to the hospital, or they just walk into a chemical shop and buy on the table or counter and take. I mean, who is regulating that? Is it Standards Board? Is it FDA? Is it Ministry of Agriculture? Is it the local government? Is it which state institutions are controlling that? There are markets, they just put. So this is our biggest challenge. Before we now even talk about what nutrition, what you should eat at what time, the food may be safe, but you are not to eat it when it comes to nutrition reasons, because at the time you are eating, the quantity you are eating, but the food itself is safe. But again, so it has to do with income matter. It's an income, you know,
related matter as well.
Related matter, and it is about the economics of the people, and you should expect that if the economic situation of the individuals is not improved, and there's also lack of food, and food prices are beyond their means, they will not be observing food safety because it is not even there, and they don't have the money to buy from the safe tables or vendors or places. So this is what
it's yes, you can, but the reaction would be your final comment, though. All right, that's fine.
So I do agree to some extent. You know, he earlier indicated that regulation is not done in isolation. You take into consideration the socio-economical, the socio-economic factors. Okay, so the things are on the floor. But then, I believe that the attitude of the consumers can change things. It is an attitudinal problem.
Okay.
People do not see food safety as important. Because in as much as people are even poor, they should get their food safe. You don't expect bull fruit to be put on the floor and say that because I don't have money, I'll buy bull fruit in the sun.
Let me simplify his point for you. So
yes.
I go to the market. I'm holding 5 Ghana cedis. I have 3 kids that I need to feed tonight and tomorrow morning.
I know.
So I am going to buy the 5 cedis. If I see the tomatoes on the floor with some parts spoiled, I'll get about 10 pieces of that, which will give me much more bigger stew.
Yes.
than if I go and buy the one on the table, fine one, I'm getting just 3 pieces,
Yeah.
which will just be for that evening. The next morning, what my kids are going to eat.
So
is a
it is
problem.
attitudinal, and it is maybe more of education we need to do. Because if the person understands the consequences of the actions of buying the 3 cedis tomato as against buying the 5 cedis tomatoes, he or she will not buy the 3 cedis one because of the consequences. You are now going to the hospital. You are now going to be in the house, even if it says that it's just ordinary diarrhea. 2 days, 1 day of just running, not having a running time, you're not going to work. What's the economic impact on you and your family? If you are a laborer that will have to go out in search of bread every day, or whatever work you do is such that you need to go out and you cannot do, and then the other consequences. But you see, it is an attitudinal problem. In Ghana, we generally have nyode hygiene by a crap, bolakani kuno. That must stop. Oh, my engine, African gems don't kill. That also must stop. So today, if we are doing World Food Safety Day, it is getting consumers to understand that gone are those days. They should get those days. They should understand food safety. You know, when I was just coming here, as I told you, I was just coming from class and I said, let me just take coconut by the road. I parked, got the coconut. And then I asked the man how much. He said, 4 cedis for one. And then there is a bottle, 20 cedis. Should he fill the bottle for me? I said, which bottle? I hadn't seen that before. There is this 1.5 liter water bottle with a funnel on top of it. Okay. Then if you want, he will pour it in it, and then he will pour in some so that the funnel is there. The funnel exposed. I mean, you know how coconut is sold? Tracks under a tree. Exposed funnel, no water anywhere for cleaning. The bottle is there, then they just pour. And can you imagine? And I said, so do people buy that? He said, oh yes. And he was expecting me to actually buy that. And so he asked Ghanaians, why just coconuts? And you see, even when they tell you coconuts, minimal, as in should they remove your hands removing the coconut in it for me? Why can't I? They have something they do like a spatula. Yeah. They just take. Why can't I just take that out, scoop my own thing and take? How lazy are we? And it's because they do not understand food safety. You will not do that and sacrifice your safety for just that comfort of somebody with his hands removing, scooping it for you in a polythene and pouring the thing in a polythene for you. It is our attitude. Right. I do agree that it has socio-economic impact, as in that affects it actually, but it is our attitude. We just need food safety is a collective responsibility. Let's take it seriously, because if we don't, it will not help us.
That's why my final question to you would be to cook well or not to cook well, because again, I like quick meals. So I go to the market, I buy my chicken, I come with my garlic and what. From all the videos I watch on YouTube, they say, we shouldn't keep the food on the fire for too long. But again, keeping the food on the fire for too long kills the germs or pathogens or whatever it is that is in there. So, do I cook it small, quick, and eat, or I cook it long so it kills every germ from the dietitian's point of view? Okay.
So, I think everything we've said will also fit in. So we earlier mentioned that it's from the farm to the fork. Okay. And we've also spoken about separation of food items. Okay. So you mentioned you're having something like chicken. Okay. So probably you're doing a stir fry, if I get you.
Yes, yes.
So you don't want your vegetables to be overly cooked. Yeah. And we've already established that there are some things that are ready to eat. Our vegetables fall there. So you don't necessarily have to cook, say, your cabbage or something to become soggy to make it safe in quotes. But then from the market, how did you package your cabbage? Did you put it under your chicken like we've already established? So if you did that, then probably juices from your chicken have already contaminated your ready-to-eat vegetable. So in this case, if you come and just do something quick, then the end product is not too safe for you. So it starts from, at least for the consumer, it starts from the market. Okay, you separate your items, and when you are cooking, you avoid cross-contamination as much as possible. So say you are doing a stir fry, because you're in a hurry, you don't use the same chopping board for your raw chicken to chop your vegetables up. By so doing, you've contaminated the vegetables you're having. Or you don't say because something, so the same knife, you know, sometimes you're even frying egg. I've seen this a lot of times. And then instead of using, say, a knife to crack the egg into a bowl and whisk and fry, you just hit the egg on the saucepan and then you fry. Sometimes these eggs have fecal matter from the chicken, and when
Yeah.
you do that, a shell could break or some of the fecal matter could peel off into your egg, and you're doing, say, a sunny upside. You know,
Yeah.
so you don't want to fry it too well.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you have a very nice looking, you know, golden whitish egg, but then you're consuming things that are not safe. So if you ask me, I would say to cook well or not to cook well depends on how you handle your food. And then there are some things that must be cooked very well. Our poultry, our meat, our fish. Under food safety, we have some high risk foods. And then poultry, milk products, they fall under the high risk food. If you are killing, let's say, someone is slaughtering an animal, there's a high risk that some fecal matter can spill over the meat. So there's nothing like I'm cooking meat fast or I'm cooking chicken fast. As much as possible, you cook it to the bone.
Okay.
So your fish should be able to flake easily if you use a fork. Your chicken or meat should be cooked white.
Okay.
I hear this, I like my meat red, I like my meat red. At the end of the day, it's not well cooked.
Okay.
So if there are any, we already established that these parasitic organisms, they die under high temperatures. So if you don't cook your meat well, you are going to have them. And we've already established that those are the ones that are dangerous. Okay.
Interesting. It means there's a lot I've been doing wrong, but I'll correct my ways moving forward. My final question is a controversial one. I know the time you say is too small for you to answer the question.
Yes.
But-
You've not given me enough time to talk. We have so much to say.
Yes, I know. But my final one, and I'm being restrictive with my final question, it has to do with this perception about the kind of chicken that's on the market. Because I'm linking this to earlier conversation about hybrid and GMO and all. That I think somebody mentioned insulin. And a perception out there that, you know, the chicken that's imported are, you know, injected with some chemicals for them to look fatter and appealing compared to our local ones and all. Do you believe that? If you do, if you don't, how do we address that? Have you heard about it in the first place?
Yes, I've been hearing about it. What I normally say is that, you know, as human beings, we are, you know, our eyes, right? Our nose and our lips, especially the tongue. You know, these are the three things that is poisoning us all the time. I keep saying that, like I mentioned in my earlier submission, there are people who were born blind.
Okay.
And a very popular blind person that we know the whole wide world is Stevie Wonder, a fantastic musician. He's born blind. He has nothing to...
I think we should use physically challenged.
Okay.
Yeah, let's use physically challenged.
Physically
Yes,
challenged.
Yes.
You know, he has nothing to do with sight. Whether the chicken is big, small, what have you. Whether the watermelon, the orange or what have you, what he's eating, whether it is too small, too big, he has nothing to do with that. Apart from that, smell. You know, we are being moved with whatever goes through our nose that smells good. That develop our appetites for us to eat whatever we smell. We have situations where we develop cold, where we struggle to even breathe normal air that we breathe. Apart from normal air that we are able to breathe, we cannot smell anything around us. When we get to that situation, most people have suffered that thing before. What does smell got to do with whatever we are eating? When you are being served with food, you are hungry, you need to eat. Whether the food smells good or bad, you still have to eat it because you are hungry. Now, with the tongue, strategically, it has created some kind of employment with some kind of businesses. Some of these businesses have moved into multinationals because they can tell that whatever tastes good, everybody wants it, everybody like it. So they tend to develop some kind of very dangerous substances in coating foods so that it will taste good for us to eat. We all queue up to a watches like to buy watches. Why? Because the shito tastes so good. and the smell of the shito also is so crazy. When the watcher seller is even preparing the shito in the neighborhood, everybody go like, wow, Auntie Moni's shito is having a very fantastic aroma. You know, you tend to salivate and then you go quickly go by whatever it is. At the end of the day, what you've seen, what you smell through your nose, what you've tasted, is it healthy? You know, when these three things deceive us, the body suffers at the end of the day, because it will lead us to consume poison, and then the body have to struggle with it. And we are not helping ourselves when it comes in terms of this.
Okay.
I keep saying that most of the time when we get sick, we go to the hospital, we are being prescribed medication, we go to a pharmacy shop to buy these medicines. Whoever manufactures that medicine has nothing to do with how nice it will look, how good it should smell, and the taste. It is the medication. Now, because you are sick, no matter what, you take that medication, isn't it? Why are you not keen with how the medicine should look nice, smell good, and taste good before you say, okay, I'm buying it? But because you are sick, you go out there to buy. It's psychological. We need to, you know, desist from that kind of lifestyle when it comes in terms of food safety. And let me tell you this, the organic sector here in Ghana, it is growing, and it is growing very, very, very fast. We have organic markets here in the south, in Accra, in Tema, where everybody can go there every Saturday to go buy his organic foods, ranging from fresh foods, animal products, and processed food. And most processed food is even certified as organic. All the organic produce that we are selling at these various strategic places, they are certified organic. Go there, you can buy anything that you want, and you will eat healthy food. That is where you can stay safe. And I want to give this contact out so that anybody who's watching can go out there to call this number and have access to organic food. And organic food is also certified by what is called Participatory Guarantee System, PGS, group of trained organic farmers, certified under ecological standards, that they are producing healthy organic foods. So listen to this number, 055.
And FDA approved?
Yes, 055 1958262. Call this number. We are working with Ghana Standards Authority. Okay, call this number because all our product which is processed, Ghana Standards Authority is aware, and we are working with them. They are good because it has gone through some kind of process. So Standards Authority needs to come in there. They certified us, and we are working together with them, with these two stakeholders. You can have access to organic produce and buy. And I mentioned the number again, 055 1958262. Call Madam Aisha. She's in charge of the PGS market, the whole Accra and Tema. Call her and she will let you know that go to this vein, go to that place, and can get all organic food that you want. Healthy food, organic food, we are talking about food safety and health. And we are not also encouraging and promoting imported synthetics, cooking oils and stuff like that. We are against it. Let's do well as much as we could to we are so much in love with imported foods, and it is not good. We think no matter how the imported foods are packaged, it looks so nice, it is healthy. It is not. You are deceiving yourself. It is never healthy. It is never good. It is a synthetic product that has been produced in the laboratory. It is not healthy. Let's eat our local oil, coconut oil, peanut oil, shea butter oil. These are the oil and the palm oil. This is what we need to be consuming, and not any other synthetic produced vegetable oil that they keep saying it is that, it is that. And also imported rice. Let's eat our local rice.
Right.
We have a lot of local organic rice farmers and other rice farmers here in Ghana. The rice industry is also growing. So let's eat our local rice. It is healthy, and when we talk about food safety and health, this is the way to go. Let's go organic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Basie, for your contribution. There's a suit waiting for me. I'd need money to get a lawyer to defend me. And for your advertisement you just made, I'll collect the money to go and fight my suit in court. But I'd like to thank you, Mr. Kare. I'd like to thank you, Keswa. I'd like to thank you, Mr. Basie. And I'd like to thank you for the education, FDA. Every time they are on the chopping board, especially in the mornings when, you know, something has come and we are all over the place and, you know, red oil, and they say they've added some chemical and we are on the back of the FDA. Not an easy task to perform, especially with a population of 30.8 million. How much resources go to the FDA? But they make the effort to ensure that Ghanaians are safe and they eat good meals. On that note, I would like to thank you formally. Mr. Edward Karawe is General Secretary, Ghana Agricultural Workers Union. Madam Benedicta Kesua Ado is a dietitian and a researcher. Mr. Daniel Bays Jr. is Eco Index Agro Solutions Limited Country Director. And Madam Maria Abba Lovelace Johnson is the Director of Inspectorate Directorate, Food and Drugs Authority, Ghana. They join me for us to have this beautiful conversation. I wish we had a lot more time to delve deeper into other areas, but time is not our friend. I thank you once again for joining us on Fact Sheet. Have a blessed day.